It's 2018, and a video game just launched that let players watch their horses' testicles shrink in cold weather. Not as a glitch, not as a joke. Rockstar Games built a physics system specifically for that. And that one detail tells you everything you need to know about Red Dead Redemption 2. This is the story of how over 1,600 developers spent 8 years, went over budget, pushed through 100-hour work weeks, and built a world so obsessively detailed that players are still discovering things in it today, in 2026. This is the story of how Rockstar didn't just make a video game. They tried to simulate reality itself, and in doing so, they accidentally made the most over-engineered open world ever created. To understand just how insane Red Dead Redemption 2 is, you first have to understand what every other open world was doing in 2018. Most open worlds follow the same formula. You build a big map, scatter collectibles across it, write some missions, and fill it with NPCs that repeat the same 3 lines of dialogue. That was the standard. That was acceptable. That was fine. Rockstar looked at that formula and threw it in the trash. When development began in 2010, right after the original Red Dead Redemption launched, Dan Houser, Rockstar's lead writer and co-founder, had one obsessive goal. He didn't want players to play in a world. He wanted them to live in one. And that single obsession turned a normal video game into a crisis. By 2018, Houser would admit publicly that the game was behind schedule and so far over budget he didn't want to think about it. The final estimated cost? $540 million. To put that in perspective, the entire budget for GTA 5, one of the best-selling games in history, was $137 million. Rockstar spent 4 times that on a cowboy game set in 1899. But that number only makes sense when you understand what they were actually building. The 4 systems nobody asked for, every other open world built one game. Rockstar built 4 interlocking simulations and stacked them on top of each other. First, the living world. RDR2's map isn't just big, it's alive in a way no game had attempted before. The world runs on a full 24-hour cycle. NPCs don't just stand in place waiting for you to talk to them. They have daily schedules. A blacksmith opens his shop in the morning, takes lunch, closes at dusk, goes to the saloon, stumbles home drunk, every single day, without you triggering it. There are over 200 species of animals, each programmed with their own behavior. Coyotes hunt rabbits. Vultures circle and descend on carcasses. Carcasses actually decay over time. Eagles hunt from above and will snatch smaller animals right in front of you. The game runs an entire food chain simulation in the background at all times, whether you're watching or not. And here's the part that makes other developers uncomfortable. Rockstar gave NPCs memory. If you rob a man in Valentine and he sees your face, he'll remember you. Come back days later and he'll cross the street to avoid you, or he'll call the law. Other games give NPCs a goldfish memory. RDR2 gave them grudges. Second, the Arthur Morgan system. Arthur is not just a character, he is a simulation. His hair grows in real time, his beard grows in real time, 10 separate stages, each requiring actual in-game days to pass. If you want the longest beard, you have to use hair tonics and wait 3 full weeks of in-game time. His weight changes based on how much you feed him. Eat too much, he gets visibly heavier, but he can absorb more damage. Eat too little, he loses weight but moves faster. The game never explains this system. It just quietly runs in the background. His clothing reacts to the world. Get caught in the rain, his coat gets wet and sticks to his body. Ride through mud, it cakes onto him and slows him down. Get into a gunfight. Blood dries and hardens on his clothes over time. Come in from a snowstorm. The snow on his jacket gradually melts. None of this affects major gameplay. Rockstar built it anyway. And then there's the temperature system. Wear the wrong clothes in the wrong climate, and Arthur starts taking health penalties. Go into the snowy mountains in a summer outfit, and his cores drain 900% faster. The game isn't punishing you. It's simulating exposure. Third, the horse. The horse in RDR2 is not a vehicle. It is a relationship. Your horse has its own health, its own stamina, its own personality. It gets scared, it gets attached to you, neglect it, and it performs worse. Bond with it by brushing it, feeding it, talking to it, and it becomes faster, calmer, more responsive. A horse you've bonded with will come when you whistle from across a field. Horses defecate. Flies are attracted to the manure. If you run your horse hard on a hot day and remove its saddle, you can see sweat marks left on its back. And yes, in cold weather, the male horse's testicles physically contract. Rockstar's physics team spent real development time building that. Not because anyone asked, because it was accurate. Fourth, the world itself. The game has 300,000 individual animations. To put that in context, GTA 5, the game that redefined open worlds in 2013, had roughly 10 times fewer. RDR2's technical director confirmed they used the increased memory of the PlayStation 4 to include 10 times more animations than their previous game. Arthur has different animations for picking up items depending on the angle he's approaching from. Different animations for drunk walking, for being cold, for being sick, for being overweight. The Euphoria physics engine was completely rebuilt for this game, the first time Rockstar overhauled their AI system in 17 years. And they used 60 to 70 cameras simultaneously for facial capture, not just to record the actors' performances, but to capture micro-expressions and subtle emotional reactions that could be reconstructed later in animation. The cost of perfection here is where it gets complicated, because building all of this came at a price that went beyond money. Dan Houser revealed in interviews that the senior writing team worked 100-hour weeks multiple times during 2018. The development ran so deep into crunch that it sparked a major industry conversation about Rockstar's working culture, one that reportedly changed how they approached the development of GTA 6. Bloomberg reported that delays to GTA 6 were partly driven by management's desire to avoid a repeat of RDR2's brutal final stretch. Over 4,600 people worked on this game across every Rockstar studio simultaneously. That is not a development team. That is a small city, all pointed at the same obsession. And the obsession almost broke them. Houser described it publicly. They were making a game about a cowboy dying of tuberculosis. The game wasn't coming together. They were over budget beyond anything he was comfortable thinking about. At some point during development, the rational choice would have been to cut features, to simplify, to make the thing that was expected, not the thing that was imagined. They didn't cut anything. ACT4, what they actually built, Red Dead Redemption 2, launched on October 26, 2018. It made $725 million in its first 3 days. Not its first month, 3 days. Critics called it one of the greatest games ever made. It won over 175 Game of the Year awards. Players who had already finished it dozens of times were still finding new details years later. In 2024, 6 years after launch, players were still posting new discoveries on Reddit. An NPC seen doing something nobody had documented before. An animal interaction nobody had triggered. A detail so buried in the simulation that it had gone unnoticed for half a decade. That is the line between a good open world and what Rockstar built. Good open worlds run out of secrets. RDR2 still hasn't, but here is the thing that nobody talks about. All of those systems. The food chain, the body temperature, the hair growth, the sweat marks on the saddle. Most players never notice them. You can finish the entire 60-hour story and never once think about Arthur's body weight or your horse's emotional state. Rockstar knew that. They built it anyway, because the point was never that you would see every detail. The point was that the world would feel like a place where every detail existed. And that feeling, that sense that the world continues without you, that it operated before you arrived and will keep operating after you leave, that is something no other open world has ever fully achieved. The question it leaves behind, there is a word for what Rockstar did with Red Dead Redemption 2. Over-engineered. And depending on how you look at it, that word can be a criticism or the highest possible compliment. A rational game studio builds what players will notice. It optimizes for visible return on every hour of development. It makes the systems that drive the reviews and the streams and the word of mouth. Rockstar built systems that players would never consciously register. They simulated temperature and biology and grief for an NPC's dead husband in a side quest most players skip. They spent engineering hours on horse anatomy that the vast majority of the audience would never look twice at. And the result is a world that feels, against all logic, like a real place. Not because it fooled anyone, but because when something is built with that level of care, even in the places nobody looks, the whole thing carries a weight that you feel without being able to explain it. Red Dead Redemption 2 didn't just raise the bar for open world games. It built a bar so high that 6 years later, nobody else has touched it. And the teams that tried to follow it, some of the biggest studios in the world, looked at what it cost and how long it took, and quietly decided to do something else. That is the legacy of the most over-engineered open world ever made. Not just the game it was, but the games that never got made because no one was willing to pay that price again.